Chapter 9 The Lost Dragon Rider. "Hey, Drake, so what happened?" Harold asked when they landed in a part of the forest. "It didn't work. The sword rebounded as I tried to hit him with it." "Drake, I'm sorry. I was so certain it would work," Arian said. "It's not your fault," Drake answered. "Thanks for distracting Mordor just now. It was the least I could do. Luckily, your friends got you up in time, as I saw Mordor's dragon approaching from the darkness. I've seen it before, and I cannot fight that monster." "Well, Mordor failed too, so no harm was done." "Why is he talking like that again?" Harold asked. "I think that's the dragon language," Julia answered. "I don't think he even realizes he's not talking English anymore," Harold continued. "Drake, so why didn't it work?" "I don't know. I failed. The one thing I can do now is help defend Dragonia. I'm not sure what your plans are, but I'm heading to the palace." "Drake, wait," Julia said. "We should get some sleep first. You saw the palace in the distance just now. The fight has ended or been put on hold. At least it's quiet for now, and tomorrow we'll go with you, of course. Right, Harold?" Well, Julia looked at Harold angrily. "Just kidding, of course. But Drake, despite all this, there is one good thing. I don't have to hit you." "All right," Drake answered. While hidden in the forest, Drake, Harold, and Julia started setting up camp. As soon as they were done, they tried to fall asleep. The next day they headed to the palace. Drake was extremely tired. He still thought everything was lost, but he did not yet have all the answers to his questions. After 15 minutes of traveling, they made it to the palace, although what was left of it. Big parts of stone were missing, a few towers had collapsed, and glass and rocks were scattered all over the ground. The first fight was over, and apparently they did win it, but not without losses. When they landed, they could see fallen dwarves, elves, and centaurs being carried away. The battlefield was covered in dead giant spiders, a few trolls, ravens, followers, and dismantled dead bodies, the Inferi. In the middle of the rubble stood Calypso. "Calypso! Drake, you're alive! Thank God!" "I'm sorry, Calypso. Don't worry, I still believe we can do it. Many have fallen, but I'm sure they're proud of having fought and died protecting their home. Now we have to make sure it was not for nothing." Drake felt enormous pressure. The weight on his shoulders had suddenly gotten much bigger. "I have to do one more thing," Drake said. "Only one clue left, and Mordor didn't want to tell me why it was essential for me to be dead, so who knows if my question can answer that." Drake grabbed his own sword and began walking towards Arian. He started talking the dragon language again. "Arian, I've been wondering for a while whether or not you're able to read what is engraved on this sword." 15 minutes later. "Drake! Chop, you're alive!" Drake, Harold, and Julia are reunited with Chop, Doozle, Lenny, Lawrence, and Errol's. "Why so surprised?" "You know what? Tell me later what happened. Let's come up with a plan first." Suddenly they were interrupted by Mordor's voice. Everyone could hear it. "Drake, you ran. Your fear has doomed your friends and everyone in Dragonia. My armies are far from depleted. I will tell you this one thing. Everyone will die today. But I cannot die. I'm coming for you." "I can't believe it," Drake said, having lost all hope. "Yeah, me neither. That was not just one thing. Those were multiple things," Harold said. Harold always knew how to stay humorous in the darkest of times. "Everyone to their posts," Calypso shouted. "The battle for the mythical world is not over yet." The plan Chop came with involved certain groups to be positioned at certain areas. Julia and Harold wished Drake good luck as they left together with the dwarves and arrows. Drake stayed with Calypso. "Drake, good luck." "Thank you, Calypso. You too." The battle was about to begin. The creatures and followers started running from the forest. "It's time for blood, ha ha ha," one of the followers blared. He came running towards the palace and seemed to be guiding the army. He looked ridiculously shouty. "Attack!" he blared again. The monsters and followers kept storming towards the palace and managed to get close very quickly. The Inferi that all just crawled out of the ground were able to attack first. They were shot on sight by the archers, but plenty managed to get to everyone anyhow. The Inferi did everything they could to kill. Bite, scratch, rip, and so the other creatures made it to the palace. The fight started gruesomely right away. Centaurs, elves, and dwarves all ended in the most horrific ways. Out of the forest, ravens started appearing, hundreds. They were all aiming at the archers. A few were taken down, but the amount that broke through and the number of wounds the archers received because of all the bites cost most of them their lives. The sky was Mordor's domain that day. The trolls came storming at the walls and towers of the palace. They easily broke through walls and demolished towers, but they themselves were not easily taken down. The followers started fighting one-on-one with the defenders of Dragonia. They looked repulsive because of their clothes, wounds, and their unattended looks. In fact, the followers were the least hard to defeat, as most of them lacked cleverness and all were only out to kill. The defenders all had one advantage. They fought on familiar territory. This way the dwarves were easily able to outsmart the followers by using their surroundings. The elves were more fun with using their weapons and much more skilled with that. At that point, the fight seemed to go neck to neck. Meanwhile at Harold and Julia. Coming in from that way, Harold notified everyone. Watch it, Julia shouted. An ash devil came flying over their heads. It threw a fireball which hit an elf. The elf caught on fire and tried to run it off, but died too quickly. Julia managed to shoot one of the ash devils out of the air. Harold threw his boomerang and took out another. They were in charge of defending them from the ash devils. Meanwhile at Calypso. On the middle of the square, a slow, gigantic mountain troll approached. Calypso stood eye to eye with the giant. This was when Calypso revealed what she could do. She moved the water from the stream in the ravine which surrounded the palace, upwards with her powers. She moved it towards the troll at a fast pace and hit the monster with a huge blow of water, making him fall over. Go back to where you came from, Calypso yelled. The troll tried to get up. Calypso moved the water towards him again and again so that he couldn't. Eventually, Calypso managed to push him to the edge of the ravine. She collected and bent a huge ball of water before throwing it against the troll. The blow knocked him into the ravine, and because he was so big, the stream wasn't enough to break his fall. And greet Helen for me, Calypso said afterwards. Meanwhile at Drake. Drake stood next to one of the highest towers of the palace that hadn't fallen yet. He held his sword ready, waiting for Mordor. I will end this war. That's my destiny. I was chosen, Drake murmured to himself. Just like the previous time, a dark source of particles appeared. This time not just Mordor emerged. His dragon showed up behind him. The monstrous beast was colored black and red, and his back was covered in sharp spines. Drake had never seen something as terrifying as Mordor's dragon. And just like that we face each other again, Mordor said. Oh, and this is Tyro. Consider him my pet. Go play, Tyro. The dragon flew towards the battlefield. Drake was able to see how he further destroyed the palace and took out many soldiers. The monster started spitting fire and killed even more soldiers. Suddenly Tyro was attacked by Arion. Drake remembered Arion's fear for Tyro and was moved by Arion's loyalty and decision to take him on anyway. Arion tried to keep Tyro in his grip, but he managed to get loose. As soon as Tyro did, he bit Arion in his neck. Arion roared louder than ever. Their fight turned into a bloody battle between beasts. As Arion realized he was outmatched, he tried to flee. He maneuvered around pillars and towers to try and lose him. Tyro spit fire, but Arion was capable of dodging it. The dragon fire was blinding and everyone could feel the heat, even though they were so far away. It looks like they're having fun, Mordor said. Why are you doing this? Drake asked. I've told you, it is my destiny. Is there no other way? You are just a kid, you would never understand. You are blinded by power. Drake started running through the palace. Mordor blew up certain parts of it by simply moving his arm. Drake made it down the stairs just in time, before bricks and rubble could land on his head. He ran for many minutes with Mordor on his tail. Meanwhile at Harold and Julia. I'm so tired of this, Julia yelled. She walked down one of the stairs of the palace. Where are you going? Harold asked. I'm so sick and tired of staying there all the time. I'm going to help properly. Julia looked around for the possibility of being able to help. Only then she was able to see another part of the battlefield, where it was full of giant spiders. Spiders? Why spiders? Why? Julia had a huge phobia for spiders, but she tried her very best to ignore it. Without thinking, she headed for them. Some started focusing on her and began crawling towards her. Every 2 seconds, Julia managed to pull her bow and fire an arrow. The spiders were easy to hit, but mostly she didn't kill them right away. They all had to be hit at a precise spot. When the spiders were far from defeated, something new came crawling out of the forest. A spider, 10 times as big as the others. Julia froze at the sight of the 8-legged abomination, but she managed to pull herself together right away, as all she wanted was to see the source of her fear gone. Haru, I have an idea, she yelled. Throw your boomerang to cut off its legs. You got it. Julia's plan started working. Haru threw his boomerang and managed to hit one of the legs. It was immediately cut off. Out of the part of the leg that the spider still had, acid dripped. It looked like green blood, but the grass where it dripped on withered away. Harold had gotten hold of his boomerang again, but the spider was furious and could still make it to them with 7 legs. It attacked Harold and he barely managed to dodge it. As Harold fell on the ground, the spider lifted one of his legs to stab him with. But right before the monster went in for the kill, an axe came flying by, cutting off the leg. Harold rolled away before the acid could drip on him. "Doozle," Harold said, full of gratitude. "Don't just lie there. Thank you." Yeah, you're welcome, but let's tend to this fella first, shall we?" They continued. Harold threw his boomerang continuously, cutting off another 2 legs. Only 4 legs left, conveniently for the spider, 2 on one side and 2 on the other. They kept having to dodge the spider's attacks and at the same time find the right moment for themselves to attack, which wasn't easy. Doozle used his battle axe and cut down 2 more legs. The spider was unable to continue moving and collapsed as soon as it lost its balance. Julia was fighting with the other spiders a little further back to keep them away from Harold and Doozle. "Julia!" Doozle yelled anxiously. At that moment, Julia looked behind her and she saw the spider convulse. Acid dripped from its legs and was now dripping from other parts of its body as well. "It's been bewitched with a self-destruct. The acid, we can't get to it. The whole battlefield will be covered in acid. You have to kill it, Julia, now." "Okay." "Oh no, that's 1 arrow left. How typical," Julia said after having used up almost all her arrows. She had to focus. She pulled her bow and for her, all sound disappeared. She had to hit this or it was game over. And after a few nerve-wracking seconds, she let go. "Go," she whispered anxiously. Bullseye. Now that the spider couldn't move as much anymore, the arrows lit through the monster's eyes. But it wasn't enough. It didn't reach deep enough. The spider was still convulsing and the acid kept dripping. But despite that, without thinking, Julia ran towards it. "Julia, no!" Haru yelled, but she kept running. They had to stop it after all. She managed to make it to the spider, but the acid kept dripping and pouring. Drops got on her clothes and her skin, and she screamed because of the pain. But she pulled out the arrow anyway and stuck it in the same spot with great force. The spider stopped convulsing and it was killed in time. Julia was relieved that it was over, but her burns were really hurting. Haru looked at her worried. "What happened here?" Lawrence asked, who was late to the party. Arrows arrived as well. They were staring at the scenery and did get the right idea of what happened. "Luck," Arrows said. "Did you just talk?" Haru asked, surprised. Arrows nodded as if it wasn't unusual for him to talk. Meanwhile at Arian and Tyro. Arian was hurt badly and was worn out. At one point, he decided to stop fleeing. He had an idea. He waited until Tyro would come at him. When Tyro tried to, Arian dodged him and Tyro received a huge blow by crashing into a palace tower. He dropped downwards but hadn't given up yet. He flew right back up as if nothing happened. Arian fled again and another burst shoot started. They flew around the palace, underneath the bridge, through the ravine and hundreds of meters up in the air. Eventually, they disappeared in the clouds. Arian finally managed to lose Tyro, which drove Tyro mad. He spit fire all around him, but Arian didn't flee. Tyro could see something move behind the clouds every now and then, and Arian managed to land a surprise attack on Tyro from behind. Tyro reacted right away and fought back. Back on the ground, some of the soldiers were facing up, their eyes focused on the clouds. What was happening up there? Suddenly 2 dragons came falling down from the sky. They both fell straight into the ravine. Chop was one of the few who saw it happening. "No," he said. "Come on." It was quiet for a while. Everyone wondered if they had killed each other, or one of them the other. The seconds that passed were slow, but then a wing appeared, and a claw tried to hold onto the edge. Slowly the dragon came crawling out of the ravine, and once he made it to the top, he dropped on the ground, exhausted, heavily wounded. But the soldiers started cheering loudly as one of the biggest threats was taken care of. Tyro was defeated, and Arian emerged victoriously. But then the actual biggest threat, Mordor, saw as his dragon was defeated. But so did Drake, and this gave him motivation, hope. Mordor became furious and decided to stop going easy on Drake. He went all in. Drake ran again, trying to find something to hide behind before Mordor could get to him. "Stand still, Drake!" Mordor shouted furiously. Drake got to a partially destroyed hallway. He jumped over the rubble, dodged the obstacles, and kept running for his life. Meanwhile at Chop, Lawrence, and Lenny. "Careful," Chop said. "Today on the menu, 3 little dwarves," the terrible-looking follower said. "Killis is hungry," he said in the third person. "I bet that's not his real name," Lawrence said. Killis was holding 2 beds with nails in them. He came straight for the dwarves but was stopped by someone who jumped in between. It was Darren, ready to fight. "Hey guys," he said. "A human?" Chop said. "Who's fighting for us?" Lenny followed up. "Don't talk, fight," Darren said. Chop, Lawrence, and Lenny helped Darren take on Killis, but Killis was surprisingly skilled in fighting, so Chop thought of a better plan and went on ahead. They were all fighting underneath a partially destroyed palace tower that remained. A few meters away, Chop saw an abandoned cannon that wasn't yet destroyed. The cannon was stationed on one of the walls, but the stairs leading to it were demolished. Chop could never reach, but he had a clever idea. The cannon was already pointed to the palace tower. All Chop hoped for now is that it was loaded. He ran to the hallway, which was closed, and managed to find a torch on the wall that was still lit. He ran back, seeing the others still fighting Killis. He looked at the cannon, aimed, and threw the torch towards the fuse. It flew by and managed to light the fuse on fire. "Hey, Killis, what happened to John?" Chop asked him. At that moment, he gave Darren, Lawrence, and Lenny a signal. Only they could see it because Killis wasn't facing Chop yet. They realized what Chop had done and therefore moved away from the tower, away from Killis. "John? Ha! He refused to serve Mordor after all. I was given the honor to smash his brains in. Ha ha ha!" What Killis told him angered Chop greatly. "Then this is what you get back for it." The fuse burned up and a cannonball shot right through the tower, destroying the last part that held it up. Killis turned around and saw a little too late what came raining down on him. A palace tower was about to flatten him, and right before it did, he murmured, "Bloody hell." Afterwards, at Drake and Mordor. Drake was hiding behind a pile of rubble, waiting for Mordor to come close. He had decided to stop hiding and to attack. He stepped forward and saw Mordor. Behind him, he could see the entire battlefield. It seemed like the fight was about to end against their favor, considering there weren't many warriors left to fight against Mordor's army. Drake started talking to Mordor. "When I first came here, I had the chance to choose a weapon. I never knew what the runes engraved on my sword meant, but now I do." "Are you ready to die?" Mordor said, trying to change the subject. "I now understand why you are scared," Drake continued. "Only you knew this, but now I do too." Mordor tried to attack Drake with dark magic. Drake kept dodging his attacks while he continued to talk. "Used for good, awarded by God. Do you know what that means, Ralph?" "Gods are just a fairy tale. Come out!" Mordor shouted furiously. "Weapons are made for war, to kill," Drake said. "So how could you ever use a weapon for good?" "You will die today!" Mordor shouted, even more furious. Mordor tried to do everything to get a hold of Drake, who kept moving and dodging. By fighting the dark. Drake came running at Mordor, holding his sword tightly, but he was stopped when Mordor summoned a black rope, which started wrapping around Drake's neck, arms, and legs. Drake couldn't escape. Still, he tried to talk. "No one is invincible, and your hatred has made you..." Drake became almost unable to breathe. "Vulnerable." Mordor did have Drake trapped, so Drake couldn't swing his sword or move at all. The rope hung around his hand so tightly that he dropped the sword, but he knew someone was watching them, ready to help. Mordor kicked the sword away. "Goodbye, Drake," Mordor said. The sword was picked up by Julia, and she swung the sword, hitting Mordor in the back. The rope that was holding Drake into place automatically vanished, and Drake tried to catch his breath. Julia threw the sword past Mordor as he was reorienting, and Drake caught it in the air. He followed up by sticking the sword through Mordor's chest. Mordor looked at Drake with open eyes but chuckled wickedly. The pain Mordor felt was the same as what Drake felt, because before Drake was released, Mordor had stabbed him with a dagger. Mordor didn't know what to think, so he just chuckled. It was quiet. A calm, gentle breeze came by. Mordor's chuckling became inaudible. Slowly he started changing. His body became black like ash, and he started dissolving. Black particles flew up into the air, but they passed. Suddenly, a strong force pulled him into the ground. Mordor was gone. Drake fell over. He felt terrible. The dagger started vanishing, but Drake was left with a wound in his stomach. His skin was turning black like it was poisoned with dark magic. Julia watched him, shocked, unsure of what to do. Mordor's defeat made the rest of his army flee into the forest. Very few soldiers were left, most heavily wounded. Even though the battle for the mythical world was won, not many seemed happy, especially when they heard what happened to Drake. While the wounded were being tended to, everyone gathered around Drake. "I'm sorry, Drake," Calypso said. "We have nothing for wounds like that." Julia was holding Drake's hand as they looked at each other. Harold was one of the last to arrive at the scene. He was shocked when he saw what everyone was looking at. "No, no." Harold bent through his knees and sat crouched in front of Drake. "No, Drake, come on, be strong. We made it. You can't die now." Harold looked Drake into his eyes and started crying. His best friend was dying. "Out of the way. Move. Make room." Someone from behind the crowd suddenly spoke. and people made room for the man who said that. He stopped in front of Drake and went on his knees. "You've done wonderfully, Drake. Your challenge is completed, and the prophecy fulfilled," he said. "Let me help you with that." The man moved his hand over Drake's wound, and in a magical way the wound started healing on its own. The black poison retracted and disappeared without a trace. Drake could breathe properly again, and the pain was gone. "Who are you?" Drake asked. "Take a guess," the man answered as he winked. And in the blink of an eye, the man vanished, leaving a bright light behind. "It can't be," Calypso said. "Haven?" Everyone was flabbergasted and confused, but proud and happy. Dragonia was saved, and their hero alive. Drake managed to find out how to end the war, saving all of Dragonia, though he would never have been able to do it alone. He knew this all too well. His life had changed, and despite the many sacrifices and fallen warriors, with this big of an adventure, Drake's life was better than ever.